So today I have my top 20 tips for getting started and success on the carnivore diet. Hi there, my name is Sue, and if you've not visited my channel before, I've been on the carnivore diet now for about a little bit over 20 months. And today I thought I'd just make a video for beginners on the carnivore diet or people who are thinking about it, just with about 20 different tips to help you to succeed basically on the carnivore diet. So first up, what is the carnivore diet? It is basically a diet that consists of foods that come from animals. So these can be parts of animals, these can be things that come out of animals and include meat, poultry, fish, seafood, eggs and dairy. Now a lot of people on the carnivore diet don't eat dairy because they find that it might cause problems if they've got autoimmune diseases, or that might stop weight loss as well. But if you choose to eat dairy, you certainly can do. So let's get on to my top 20 tips. Try saying that fast. So number one is basically to get tough, learn to say no, and not to worry about what other people think, or don't tell people that you're doing the carnivore diet. And that is because people, family and friends will worry about you. They will tell you you're going to die of a heart attack and they are going to give you a bit of a hard time. And so if you're not tough enough to handle that, that can actually stop people from continuing on this way of eating because they just get such a hard time from the people around them. So if you need to, just keep it to yourself for a while anyway, and just be a little bit sneaky about it. And my number two tip is to potentially start slowly. So it depends on what sort of person you are. If you are like me, you're probably going to just want to dive straight in and just get stuck in. But if you're coming from a standard diet with lots of processed foods, if you have health issues going on, gut issues and that sort of thing, you may want to start a bit more slowly. So in that case, my advice to anyone would be to get rid of most of the processed foods out of your diet. Get rid of seed oils and sugar are two big ones. And so that's a good start. If you just clean your diet up first, you'll notice probably some health benefits from that if you are eating a lot of processed foods. And then you can take it from there and just create a plan to do it, maybe over 3 months or whatever, and just kind of move into it a bit more slowly. Increase your meat intake, increase your intake of eggs and that sort of thing, and just gradually drop the other stuff off. And that brings me on to my third tip, which is to remove the processed foods and trigger foods for you from your home. So if you are someone who has like food addictions and things like that, if there are things in your house that are going to be staring at you that you're not going to be able to say no to if you're having a bad day, then you need to get rid of those out of your house. And that brings me to my fourth tip, which is to get your family on board or your partner on board. So if you have a family, who are living with you, if you have a partner, a husband or a wife, then try to get them on board. So if they love you and they want what's best for you, then they should be supporting you. So if you need to get rid of things out of the house that they enjoy as well, just explain to them why. And they should be okay with that. Let them moan and grizzle if they're going to moan and grizzle. But explain to them why you want to do this diet and what it means to you and what benefits it's going to have for them. If you're going to be healthier and fitter and happier, then that is going to make a difference to them. Ideally, if they can support you by joining you on this way of eating, that's even better, because that way you can clean everything out of the house. You don't have to be cooking and smelling the things that they're eating, and you can all do it together and experience the benefits together. But if that doesn't happen, then at least try to get them to understand where you're coming from, why you're doing it, and to get them to support you. So number 5 is to be aware that there will be a period of time where your body is getting used to this new way of eating. So for a lot of people, when they start on carnivore, they will get diarrhea, and that might last for a week or a couple of weeks. It might last for a month. That's really common, and it's basically, I'm pretty sure, is because the microbiome's changing. So there's die-off going on. There's also detox going on a lot of the time, but there is die-off going on and in your microbiome, which is the bacteria in your gut and your bowel. And so there's changes happening there, and that's what causes the diarrhea. Most of the time, that's fairly short-lived, and then people are over it. But sometimes for people like myself, that can go on a lot longer. I mean, for me, it was about 10 months or so of pretty constant, really bad diarrhea that was worse than it had ever been before. And sometimes you've just got to ride that out. So there are ways of kind of managing that sort of thing, and I talk about that in some of my videos, my experience. So if you want to go back and watch some of those, because my gut health has been a thing like forever, and part of the reason why I'm on the carnivore diet. So knowing that might happen is really helpful, because otherwise you've got people that are starting on carnivore and they're not expecting these things to happen, and they might assume that the carnivore diet just doesn't work for them and quit, when in actual fact it's just a normal process of their body detoxing and adjusting to the new way of eating. I mean, if your liver and your gallbladder aren't functioning as well as they should be, you might have trouble processing the fats and things like that, so you might need to adjust your fat levels and stuff for a little while until your body actually adapts. The other thing that can happen when you start on carnivore is oxalate dumping, and so I've got a few videos where I talk about oxalate dumping, because that's been a big thing for me. A lot of people have oxalate stored in their bodies, particularly if you've been on very plant-based way of eating, if you've been vegan or vegetarian in the past. And so if you have a look at my video, this one here, I will try and remember to link to it below, about how I know when I'm oxalate dumping. I explain in there what oxalate is, and what's actually happening when you're oxalate dumping. And so the oxalate dumping can go on for a very long time. I'm almost 2 years in, and I'm still having oxalate dumping now, but it's way better than it was in the beginning. I don't have anywhere near the issues that I did to start with. So do know that it will pass. And so my number 6 tip, which kind of goes with the last couple, is that maybe in some instances it might be better to actually do the keto diet first. So, like I said a couple of tips back about gradually moving into carnivore, eliminating some things. You can go from there onto the keto diet for a period of time, and the keto diet will help your body to become more fat adapted, and just to kind of help with that adjustment phase. So a lot of people go from keto onto carnivore, and I've noticed in some of the groups that I've been in that people who've been on keto for quite a long time have an easier adjustment phase into carnivore and less of the physical symptoms that might go on, it seems anyway. And I think it's because they've been on a ketogenic diet for quite a period of time prior. So that can be a way of kind of transitioning as well, if you want to do it that way, even just for a month or a couple of months. I was on keto for 3 months before I went on to carnivore, and I think it possibly helped. I think if I'd gone from my original diet straight into carnivore, I would have suffered more than I did probably, although I had been on a really bumpy journey. So yeah, it depends on where you're coming from, what your diet has been prior, and the type of person that you are as well. I mean, like I said, for me, I just like to dive into things, and so that's pretty much what I did, although I had been on keto for the 2 or 3 months prior, but that wasn't a plan, it's just the way that it worked out. So my number 7 tip is to be prepared always. Make sure that you've got carnivore-friendly foods in the house that are ready to cook, especially initially, because you don't want to get hungry and then not have something there that you can cook quickly to satiate that hunger. If you're hungry and you've got a roast that's going to have to be cooked for 3 hours and that's the only thing you've got in the house, that's not going to work. You're going to go looking for something else. So make sure that you've got fast carnivore foods that you can cook, whether that's eggs, steak, whether that's things that are already prepared in the fridge, some cold meat or whatever. Make sure that you've got something. And my number 8 tip is to eat everything from the carnivore rainbow, initially, because if you can eat the foods that you really enjoy, that's going to make a difference. And if you have can have more variety that's going to make a difference. So it's really common when you start on carnivore, and we were like this when we first started. We would want to have 2 or 3 different meats on our plate because we're used to having that variety. So, we might have some steak and some chicken nibbles and some eggs, or, like having that variety. Whereas now I'm quite happy to sit down to just a lump of steak. But initially, because you're coming from a diet where you've had lots of variety, there's a little bit to get your head around. And so if you can have lots to choose from, then that's the best way to go. And that brings me on to my next tip, which is number 9, which is just to eat the foods you love. So again, because you're starting on this different way of eating, and you've come from a different way of eating, you want to make sure that you can eat foods that you really enjoy eating, that you're going to feel satiated, that you're not going to feel deprived. Because if you're new to this and you feel deprived and your family is sitting down to some macaroni cheese and you're feeling like you haven't got something that you really enjoy in front of you, you're going to be tempted to eat the mac and cheese. So make sure that you've got foods that you love eating. Eat those foods. If you want to have cheese all over your steak, have cheese all over your steak. You can do that to start with, and then later on, if you decide that you want to eliminate dairy from your diet for a while, you can do that. But do what you need to do to keep you on this way of eating initially. And my number 10 tip is, if you need to have coffee or tea, have it. It's really tempting when you start, if you're like me, you just want to get rid of all plants out of your diet, and you think, okay, I'm not going to drink coffee and I'm not going to drink tea. If you really enjoy coffee and you're really going to miss it, and it's going to make you want to quit your carnivore diet, have the coffee. Lots of carnivores drink coffee and they keep drinking it forever. But if it's something that you want to give up, leave it until later to give that up, and focus on what you're eating. Have your coffee. Have your coffee after you eat. Don't have it before. So then make sure that you're eating enough, and eventually that actually makes it easier to quit the coffee if you want to, because you're already satiated, and that craving for the coffee can be less if you've had enough to eat. So that's just another little tip in there amongst that one. Number 11 is to have herbs and spices and condiments if you want them. So these can be hard to give up as well. If you've got meats that you don't really like without the garlic or the onion, you're not going to enjoy those as much. So if you want the garlic and the onion, have them. If you're cooking up some prawns and you want to have them in butter and garlic, have that. If you are somebody who has sauces on things, have them. My only thing that I would say is to make sure you read the labels and avoid sugar and avoid chemical additives. So you really don't want sugar in your diet, and you don't want the chemical additives. So if you've got a sauce that you're used to using that's got that stuff in it, try and find a cleaner version. Carnivore groups online are good places to find those sorts of products, or do a search online. You might be able to find a keto store online that sells all that sort of stuff, and order something from there, because they won't have sugar in them. But by including some herbs and spices and things like that in your meals can also reduce your oxalate dumping symptoms as well. And a lot of carnivores continue to use herbs and spices forever. I mean, there's, for example, the Carnivore Doctor on YouTube, who handle is Carnivore Doctor. I can't remember her name. The blonde lady who's the eye doctor. She's 14 or 15 years into the carnivore diet, and she still uses lots of herbs and spices, and she still gets great results with her diet. So, it depends on you and your health and your body and what you want. If you use that stuff to start with, it's like the dairy, use it to start with to help keep you on track. And then later on down the track, if your health isn't where you want it, you can always cut those out and see if it makes a difference. Number 12 is kind of on that same vein. If you jump straight into the lion diet, which is red meat, salt and water, you are probably more destined to fail. Some people do manage to do this, and I give them kudos for doing that, because that's a hard thing to do, to go from a standard diet straight into red meat, salt and water. But for some people, they're going to feel deprived. And that might be you. If you're someone who has kind of eating issues and issues around food, if you feel deprived, then you're more likely to dump your diet and go back to the way you were eating before. So if you think that's you, then don't do the lion diet to start with. You can always do it again later on down the track. For me, that's something that I want to do once I can, but my health doesn't seem to want to let me still. But if you do want to try it, do it a little bit later and just stick with all the rainbow of carnivore foods to start with to keep you on track. Now, tip number 13, if you go to school or work, take your meals with you. So if you're there over lunch or dinner or whatever, make sure you take your food with you, because otherwise you're going to get hungry and you're going to go looking for food elsewhere where you probably can't get carnivore food. And number 14, if you're socializing or going out for dinner or going to functions, eat before you go. That way, if there isn't anything there that you can eat, you're not going to get hungry and be tempted to eat something that you shouldn't. If you can make sure you're nice and satiated before you go out, then that's going to help keep you on track. If there is stuff that you can eat, you can have a pick at that. Sometimes you go to functions and the only thing you can eat is the cheese that's on the cheese board. And so if you've already eaten before you went out, then you can have a nibble at some cheese and you're fine. But if you're starving, you're going to end up eating something that you don't want to eat. And once you've been on carnivore for a while, what you'll find is that fasting actually comes easy. So if you go out somewhere and there's nothing you can eat, then you just don't eat, and that becomes easy. But when you first start out, that's actually a little bit harder. So make sure that you have had something to eat before you go. And number 15, if you go out and you're socialising and your friends are drinking, drink sparkling water. Get a glass of sparkling water, maybe with a slice of lemon. That way you can participate. You're having a drink, but it's just sparkling water, and your body is going to thank you for it, and you're going to feel great the next day. Number 16, if money is an issue, learn to love ground beef and eggs. If you can buy directly from a farmer, if you can get money together to do that and buy directly from a farmer, that works out way cheaper. Or buy meat in bulk, so like we buy whole rumps or whole sirloins, bring them home and cut them up. And for example, we sometimes pay maybe $10.99 a kilo for rump steak whole, but if you were buying it sliced, it would be maybe $16.99 a kilo, or even $18.99 a kilo. So it's quite a big difference sometimes. So I just bring it home, slice it up, and put it in the freezer. And I mean, quite often we're quite happy to eat rump steak all week, and that's what happens on carnivore, is you get to a point where just having meat to eat that you enjoy is good enough. It doesn't have to be different all the time. The other thing is, if you buy cheap cuts of meat, learn to cook them to perfection. Find different recipes and find ways to cook them that you really enjoy, and then you every day you have food that you love eating. Number 17 is don't focus on weight loss initially. So a lot of people now come to the carnivore diet for weight loss, because a lot of people get amazing weight loss and really quick, but not everybody does. And it's not really a weight loss diet, it's a healing diet. And part of that healing is ultimately weight loss generally. But sometimes that can take a while. And for some of us, we actually gain weight initially on carnivore, because if our bodies have been starved of nutrients for a long time, we actually get really hungry initially. That's quite common, is to get really hungry and feel like you can't get enough food into you to start with. And that's just because your body's wanting the nutrition. And so sometimes that might go on for a few weeks, for a few months, and it's common to gain weight. So don't panic if that happens. Just let it go. It'll eventually stop. That excess hunger will eventually stop, and then you'll start dropping some weight. Weight loss can be really slow. In my case, my weight loss has been really slow, but it's just a case of being patient and knowing that your body's healing. And as long as your health is improving, that's the biggie. That's what you really want to pay attention to. And so that brings me to number 18, and that is to make a list before you start carnivore, or when you start carnivore. Write down your weight and your measurements. Write down everything that's going on with you. So every little skin issue, whether you get headaches, whether you're having issues with your eyes, your mental state, whether you're having weird little symptoms in your body, write it all down, because the thing is, as time goes on, you'll forget that those were even a thing. And so sometimes you might have times where it doesn't seem like anything's changing, and you get frustrated. And so then if you go back, you can see where you've come from, and you're like, oh, that's right, I used to get that, I don't get it anymore. And oh, that's right, I had that thing on my skin, and that doesn't happen anymore. So, all these little things that are indicators that your health is actually improving, you might forget about if you don't have them written down. And number 19 is to get blood tests done before you start. I wish I had done this. I didn't. The last lot of blood tests I had were 10 years ago, so 8 years basically prior to starting Carnivore. And so if you get your blood tests done before you start, and then get them done, every 6 months or 3 months or 12 months, whatever you want along the track, you can kind of see what's changing, where you're at, things that you might need to be mindful of, things that you might need to adjust to create better change, and it helps to give you more of a picture of where you're at with your carnivore diet and your health. And number 20 is don't stress when people do give you a hard time. So this can be hard, and family and friends, even as time goes on, they'll ask you some tough questions sometimes, and so if you know the answers to those questions, that really helps. But if you don't know the answer, just tell them you'll get back to them. Tell them you'll find out and get back to them. I did that a while back with my dad. He asked me how I was not going to get scurvy on this diet, and I couldn't think of the answer at the time. So I went and found it later on, and I flicked it through to him in a message so that he had the answer to that. Because your family in particular and your friends, they are going to worry about you, because the whole propaganda around red meat being bad for you and saturated fat is really instilled in people's belief systems. And so when they see you eating all this meat and fat, it's fairly natural for them to worry, unless, if they haven't looked into it at all. So they're going to be thinking you're going to have a heart attack. But as time goes on and you start looking better and feeling better and dropping some weight, then they start to see, maybe this is okay. And then, if you learn the answers, and you learn, learn ways to explain things to people, then that really helps as well. So once there's visual, obvious evidence that things are changing for the better, it kind of makes it harder for others to criticise with any volition. So that's my 20 tips for succeeding on your carnivore diet. I hope you got some benefit out of those. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, and I just want to let you know that I have a membership that I've just set up just recently that is $3.99 New Zealand a month, which allows you to get priority with questions and things being answered, because I'm finding it a little bit hard to answer all the questions and reply to all the comments now on my videos, as I'm getting more and more people watching them. So if you choose to do that, then thank you. But otherwise, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and pop any comments or questions down below, and I will try to get to those as soon as I can. And I thank you very much for watching this video, and I will talk to you again another day. Bye bye for now.